This episode of Tea with Jules is proudly brought to you by The Home. You can shop any of the items you see in this episode at thehome.com.au. Pat Farmer, welcome to Tea with Jules.
Well, thank you so much, Jules. It's nice to be here and a great cup of tea to boot.
Yes, we're drinking Fruit Royale tea today.
Yeah, it's one of my favourites. I like it a lot.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do actually. I drink a lot of tea. I often sit at home and I'll make myself a pot of tea. I've got a beautiful Royal Dalton a teapot, large teapot, and I make a full pot of tea and I'll sit there while I'm working away writing lines for books and stories and different things, or just planning routes for races.
I love it.
Well, it reminds me a lot. When I was a little kid, my mum used to always wake all of us. There were 7 kids in our family. My mum used to wake us with a cup of tea every morning.
I like to give my boys like a little cup of like peppermint tea or something in the morning and have the little Mickey Mouse cup. And
oh, yeah, that's pretty special. I haven't got a Mickey Mouse cup.
I'll have to get you one of those. Now, Pat, you are a living legend in my mind. You are an incredible human being. Well, you're best known as an ultra-marathon runner.
Uh-huh.
Now, just tell me what the ultra part means.
So an ultra-marathon, a standard marathon is 42 kilometres, and it's similar to the ones that we see here in Sydney, of course, and throughout all the states of Australia and throughout the world, and of course in the Olympics. So 42 kilometres is the distance.
Mm-hmm.
Anything beyond that is classed as an ultra, and normally the distances are 50 kilometres, 100 kilometres, so they have 100 kilometre world championships, and then they'll have 160 kilometres or 100 miles,
mm-hmm.
Which are big in America, especially in the western states. And then, of course, then they have the multi-day events, and that's my specialty.
Now, that's a long, long way to run, really,
Yeah.
in layman's terms. You hold multiple world records for endurance running. You've run across Australia, New Zealand, Vietnam, North America, India. You've run, now this is my favourite thing, you have run from the North Pole to the South Pole. That alone is really fine. You could stop now. You don't have to do anything else. And you most recently ran for peace in India, covering 4,400 kilometres, running on average 80 kilometres a day for 64 days.
Well, 80k a day is just, that's what I do. So that's my standard. So unless it's an organised race where we need to do 100 kilometres or beyond that, or it's a first to the finish line race, 80k's is a perfect distance for me. So as the Americans say, 50 miles, 80k. So I raced across America from California to New York in the Trans-American Foot Race. I did that in 1993 and then again in 95. It was 64 days, 80 kilometres a day against 30 of the best runners in the world. So that's the sort of standards that people in my field of work set for themselves.
I can't even walk myself to my car to drive to the gym.
Yeah, but it's horses for courses, like everybody says to me, I can't run, I couldn't imagine doing those distances, but there are so many other things that I can't imagine doing myself. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about this whole world, is that we're all unique in our own way, and we're all special in our own way, and we do what we do best. And it's really all about discovering what you can do best. And to me, it's not even the running. It's just the running is my form of communication.
I want to take it back a little. You've done all of these things, but tell me where it all began. You mentioned that you came from a family of 7 children.
Yeah, I grew up in the western suburbs of Sydney, out at Granville. And I was one of 7 children in the family, so we lived in a housing commission home. We were quite poor, and the only reason why I say that, there was many people in those days in the same boat, but the point was that because I started behind the 8 ball, I think I was so determined to make sure that I really made my life count for something. And so with that in mind, I was pretty hopeless at school. I tried hard at school, but I wasn't a great athlete at school. I was the guy that would cut the oranges up and take them on to the other footy players on the field. I was ordinary at sport at school and ordinary at most things at school. And my father suggested to me that the family simply couldn't afford for me to go on at school to years 11 and 12, or 5th and 6th form we used to call it in the old days. And so I left school when I was 14. I got a job as an apprentice motor mechanic, and I was quite proud of that. I loved that. And I think the great thing about mechanics and engineering and building is it teaches you to think and to solve problems and to try and analyse how things come together, how they work, and then how it's like a jigsaw puzzle.
How did you begin running?
There was a fateful day when I was lying underneath the car, and my boss called me out, and he said, "Pat, come out here. I want you to have a look at this." I stood on the side of the road at Woodville Road at Granville, and there were all these great elite runners racing on down the road. And these runners, they had legs on them like a racehorse. They were strong and fit. They looked like Olympic athletes. They were from all over the world, and they looked amazing. And my boss said to me, he said, "See that? They're the Sydney to Melbourne ultramarathon runners. They will run day and night, night and day, until they make it all the way through to Melbourne." And I said, "What, Melbourne? You must be kidding." And he said, "No, they're going to make it all the way to Melbourne, almost 1,000 kilometres." And then I sort of looked at these guys, and they were so far removed from the way I saw myself or who I was. I just sort of dismissed what he was saying straight away, and I was keen to get back on the tools. And then one guy ran past at the back of the field, and he didn't really even run past, he just sort of shuffled on by. And I said to my boss, "What, him too, that little old guy there?" And he said, "Yes, that's Cliff Young." And Cliff Young was 63 years old, and he competed in that race the first time, and he won it. And he proved to this nation that it doesn't matter how young you are, how old you are, doesn't matter about your athletic prowess. If you're determined enough and strong enough and you believe in yourself enough, you can achieve anything you set your mind to. So that was the catalyst that got me into running.
So he won that race that you watched?
He won that race. And the thing about that was, if he had been one of these great athletes, I would have just said straight away, well, I can't be like that, so I wouldn't even bother trying.
Right.
But because it was an ordinary person that did something absolutely extraordinary, that's what inspired me. So at that moment, I decided, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to be.
What do you do then? Do you just buy a pair of shoes and start running, like Forrest Gump style?
Well,
or do you just get a coach, or what does that look like?
Well, the first thing I did was I went home, I told all of my family, this is what I'm going to do. And my eldest brother, Bernie, he thought it was so funny. So we went for a run that afternoon. We ran 3 kilometres, and I was huffing and puffing. I was nearly dead. So he said, hopefully you've got that out of your system now. Mm-hmm. But that made me more determined because it was difficult, but I still finished what I'd started, that 3K run that day. So it was just a matter of progression and knowing that good things happen with time and that things don't happen instantly, or nothing worthwhile is ever easy. I stuck at it, and I continue to today. I've been running now for more than 35 years, and I love it, and I love what I can do with the running, and it gives me an audience to people and an opportunity. So that, combined with a political career in between all of that, really gives me a platform to be able to make a difference to people's lives.
Well, that's the amazing thing about your running. It's very focused on giving back.
The thing with what I do is it's hard work. It's really hard work, and it's exhausting and tiring, and it hurts a lot. You've got aches and pains and blisters and bruises and sometimes a few tears to boot. It's a hard slog. So I realised a long time ago that if you are just beating yourself up for yourself, then no gold medal that you could ever attain in an Olympic style of an event, or no prize purse, could never ever cause you to really hurt yourself a lot.
Right.
But for the sake of saving another human being's life, or bettering their lives, or transforming their life, it's amazing what you can do. So I always try and find purpose in my life through other people's lives, and so I work on supporting other people as much as I can in a whole raft of different ways, fundraising and realising and promoting worthwhile causes, and that's what gets me back up off the ground after I've fallen a few times. Mm-hmm. One of the ones I feel most proud of was the run in the Middle East. I ran Lebanon, Jordan, Israel and Palestine, and it was just after the Syria crisis had broken out. And there was a lot of people at home here watching the news and watching what was going on TV, and they were just, classing everybody from the Middle East as, oh, you must be a terrorist, you must be a troublemaker, you have hate, born with hatred in your heart. And I'd grown up with a lot of kids from Lebanon and that part of the world, and I knew this was not the case. And they told me of beautiful places they used to ski to go to school, ski through to go to school, because they lived up in the mountains of Lebanon. So I decided I was going to go over there. I was going to do this run through Lebanon, Jordan, Israel and Palestine. I had originally picked Egypt and also Syria, but I had to cancel those two parts of the journey because of what had just erupted. And I went over there and I was able to show a different face to the people. I was able to show these people were just good, decent, kind people that were the same as everybody else in the world, just wanted to get on with their lives and wanted their children to have every opportunity they could give them.
Do you know how much you've raised for charity so far?
Well, it was estimated, I was on a program called This Is Your Life many years ago. I think it was way back in, must have been about 1991 or something like that. It was a long time ago. And they'd estimated that I'd raised more than $3 million for various charities back in those days. So I've continued to do that through to this day. So I don't know, a fair bit. But look, at the end of the day, I do what I do, but I just encourage other people to support the cause and to give as well. So yeah, I'm giving them my time and my efforts and a bit of coin out of my pocket, but at the end of the day, it takes hundreds and sometimes thousands of people to join in the cause and support you as well. And every one of those are just as worthy a recipient of praise for supporting the cause and believing in the cause. And I think it's a wonderful thing about Australia, and most people in general, is they have kind hearts and they give when they can, as often as they possibly can. But there is just so many needs out there and so many charities and so many worthwhile causes. Somehow, some way, we always find a way to be able to do what we can.
Yeah. You sort of have, I guess, I don't know if it's a personality trait of that kind of determination, motivation. Do you think that's the sort of person you are? Or do you think that can be learned?
Look, I think anything can be learned, but definitely we are affected by our childhood. And when I was growing up, as I said earlier on, 1 of 7 kids, so we would actually lick our chops and put it back on the plate so that nobody ate your chop before you got back. And that's how difficult things were in those days, and how precious lunch was. Sort of growing up in that competitive environment makes you who you are.
Yeah, because you got to fight for it, right?
Absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
7 kids is a lot.
And I was in the middle, so, I wasn't special at either end.
I'm the middle child too. I understand. But
I suppose if I could take this from just a cup of tea and a chat through to pretty deep conversation, if you're asking what really makes me up as a person, who I really am and what I'm all about, I'm the sum total of many things that have happened in my life. My father died when I was 14 years old, and not long after I got my apprenticeship, only a few months after I got my apprenticeship, he passed away. That had a profound effect on me. Then later on in life, I had 2 wonderful children, and my young wife, who was also my childhood sweetheart, she passed away as well. She died as well. She had a valve in the heart just pop out, and she died as well. So I'm not saying that because I want people to think, oh, that's a shame, because people die in everyone's life, people that are close to us. It's a part of life. But the thing for me was that I analysed that situation, both those situations, so much. And from my dad, I drew the point that if the worst thing that can possibly happen is that in my life is that if I die, I will end up the same places where my dad is, wherever that may be. It could be anywhere depending on what your beliefs are. Then that's not such a bad scenario after all. And so I had no fear. From that moment on, I had no fear of anything.
Wow.
Because if the worst thing that can happen is I pass as well, then at least I'm with my dad. And then when Lisa passed away, it was wow, just the journey of having to be both mum and dad to these little bits of children. My daughter was 2 years old, my son was 10 months old at the time.
Goodness.
So for the next 16 years, raising them on my own and going through all of that, I grew an incredible respect for women and what they go through in their lives and how they have to be multi-purpose and multitask, to be teachers, to be everything to the kids. So I grew up with a completely different mindset as a result of having to play both mum and dad, and still try and hold down a job, a high-powered job at that, you know, and still try and be this adventurer or this person that seized opportunities when they present themselves, because that's what I wanted my children to know and understand. So it's been a tough road, a very busy road, but it's those are the things that have shaped me and formed me into who I am.
It's sort of, I look at running and long distance running as it's endurance. It's like you have to get to the end and that sort of thing. It's a different sort of endurance, having to face adversity and setbacks in life.
Yeah.
But do you think it's kind of the same concept to get through?
Absolutely. And this is why I love the running, because running gives me freedom. Running gives me expression. Running allows me to be who I am, and allows me to internalize my thoughts and realize the person I am inside. For me, it's all of those things combined, but it's from something inside of me that nobody else can see, and I feel strong, I feel in control, I feel free, and I'm learning all the time. I learn so much. Like, people say to me, don't you get bored running such long distances? But I don't. I don't at all, because there's so much going on in my head and my heart and my soul when I run that, yeah, I feel the aches and pains and the mundaneness of going through day after day, what a lot of people would perceive as the same thing. But for me, life is a journey. Whether it finishes 100 years on, or whether it finishes 5 years on or 1 year on, it's still a journey, and it's about analysing every single day, being everything that you can on every single day, being the best that you can possibly be, and really being joyful that you've got a gasp of air going down your throat, that you can breathe, that you have opportunities that many people that have left this life don't have.
Yeah.
And that you're able to have that freedom and do those things. And once again, you know, I sort of draw back to the whole refugee thing and the whole lot of people coming from other countries or moving from one country to another country to another country. And I think I have a different approach on all of that, because I've travelled to so many places, and I've been to the richest places and the richest homes and richest people on earth, and the poorest as well. And I've lived side by side with these people, and because I've done that, I see this life as very transient. Like continents on the earth has just been, okay, it's just a block of land and it's got some water around in between it, and it might be the Pacific Ocean or the Indian Ocean, but there's just another block of land on the other side, and then you'll go from there to somewhere else and from there to somewhere else. But at the end of the day, we share the whole planet. We don't, like to hang on to something like this is mine, you can't have it, nobody shall come past this point because it's all about me, it's all about... I mean, we take nothing with us into this life, and we can't take anything with us out of the life either. So all of this stuff is just perception.
Are those the things you think about when you're running?
Yeah, you bet. That and so much more. Also, what I'm going to eat at the end of the day. I think about that a lot. I was in the North Pole, the South Pole, and I remember thinking to myself, about meat pies, how much I wanted an Australian meat pie with big chunky pieces of lamb in there. And I made the mistake, there was a TV program back here, a morning program back here, and the announcer asked me on the program, he said, when you come back to Australia, we want the first interview, and we're going to give you anything that you want. Now, I could have asked for a Ferrari, and I asked for a meat pie.
When you're running, okay, the short distances I've run, I go, okay, I'm going to get from here, I'm going to get to that tree. And then if I get to that tree and I'm feeling okay, I'm going to get to that pole up there. Do you set yourselves goals like that? Or is it like, this is my 80 Ks, I have to run, this is what I have to do today?
Yeah, to me, it's when I do that, I'm a professional athlete. So I clock on at 5 a.m. in the morning, and my mindset is I'm going to clock off at 5 p.m. in the afternoon or 3 p.m. or whatever it is.
And you literally run the whole time?
Yeah, so I know what I have to do, whether it be 80 Ks, whether it be 100 Ks, whether it be 160 Ks, or whatever the distance is for that 24-hour period. And I work out what I've got to do, and I break it down into segments, and that's the trick. I think so many people look at the things that I do and they think to themselves, that is so big, I can't even imagine it. And it is. But I don't see it that way. I see it as, okay, I'm going to run 30 kilometres between 5 a.m. in the morning and 10 a.m. and then I'll have my morning tea while I'm still running on down the road. So I'll do 30 Ks then I'll do another 20 kilometres between then and lunchtime, and I'll have something nice to eat. So start thinking about what I'm going to have to eat for lunch. And then I'll do another 30 in the afternoon. There's the 80 Ks for the day. It's easy.
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah.
It's all the mindset.
What is the hardest climate to run in?
For me, the extreme cold.
Right.
Give me the heat any day. Any day. I know a lot of people don't like to run in the heat, but you sweat, and if you've got the right clothing that has good wicking properties, it will take the salt and the moisture away from your body. Then the salt moves away from there so you don't chafe under your arms or around your body. So the hotter climates, to me, are not a problem. But I've also run the coldest climates on the face of the planet. So the North Pole, minus 40 degrees. The South Pole, minus 40 degrees. Believe me, that when the wind hits the ice and blows in your face, and it finds a way around the side of your glasses and your balaclava and your beanies and everything that you're wearing, it's like a Bunsen burner burning your skin as it makes its way down through the side of your sunglasses.
And running on ice and snow.
If you've got the right shoes, the right boots, it's not so slippery, because especially powder snow, like the South Pole. I found that was a piece of cake. I had a good pair of Baffin boots. I ran through there, no skis, no snowshoes, and I was fine. But if it's really heavy snow, and sometimes there was times when I was up to my waist in soft snow, and then you're sort of lunging from one hole to the next to try and get to some solid stuff to get across it. That was really hard work. The North Pole was even worse. The North Pole is this ice cube that floats in the ocean, and it just cracks apart. And you've got to swim from one chunk of ice to the other. So you put on this dry suit that doesn't allow any water into your clothing or around you. And then you grab 2 ice axes and you get in the water and you swim across to the other side, breaking your way through chunks of ice, hoping that a polar bear is not going to rip you out from underneath the water and take you apart.
Oh my gosh.
Great memories. Well, I'll tell you something else probably better than that. I remarried 2 years ago, and I've got this beautiful wife now, Tanya, and she's got a voice like an angel, and she looks like an angel. She's an incredible girl. And I had to be very, very, very careful when I met her that I didn't tell her any of these stories, because she didn't know anything about me. And if I'd have told her, yeah, I've been to North Pole or Darien Jungle or South Pole, I've gone through these places and done this and that, she would have just thought I'm loopy and I never would have seen her again. So I just played it down. She said, like, what do you do for a living? Just bits and pieces of stuff. Oh, really? You tend to be away a lot. And I go, oh yeah, sometimes I have to get away for work, and I go overseas. She said, you do building overseas? And I go, well, not exactly. So it was a bit of a minefield. Yeah. I said to people, yeah, I went through the Darien Jungle with 19 armed soldiers, and and I go to North Pole and the South Pole and go through all these exotic countries and do this and do that and meet the Queen of England and different people like that. They go, yeah, sure. Don't call me, I'll call you.
Really? Women they're not into it, you don't think?
Well, even I find that hard to believe those stories, and I've lived them.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow. That's what you met the Queen?
Yeah, I met the Queen. I met her through Parliament, actually, when I was here in Parliament. It was an interesting day. Queen Elizabeth came to Australia, and of course, when she did, they always host a great big function in the grand ballroom, the grand hall there in Parliament House. So whenever we have dignitaries from other countries, so I've met kings and queens and princes and all sorts of amazing people from all over the world through that experience.
You going into politics, you did a run, and John Howard was the Prime Minister at the time.
Yeah.
And you got his attention. And
I sort of got his attention. What happened was he sent me off from Parliament House in Canberra.
Right.
So that's where the event started. And so I started at Canberra, and I was doing this run for our Centenary Federation. Ran around the whole of Australia, 14,000 kilometres later, returned back to there. But the interesting thing was whether they were big cities or whether they were small country towns, I would speak to audiences at the end of every single day. So because I was running and I was thinking so much. I was all worked up, and I had some good stories to tell about that day's journey and what it was all about and what it meant to me to be an Australian, a proud Australian. About a month after I got back, I got a call from the Prime Minister, and he said, Pat, I've seen the way that you work with people, seen the way that you know, how you give all of yourself towards a cause. He said, if you would be prepared to run for us at the next federal election, I promise you my support and the support of all of the cabinet ministers to get things done for the people that you represent in Western Sydney. And I thought at the time, at first I thought it was a joke, and I hung up on him twice.
Really?
Yeah, that's a fact. I thought it was my brother playing a joke, because I didn't know the Prime Minister's just going to call you.
Yeah, that's weird.
And then when I realised it was sincerely, it was actually him.
He just kept calling you back.
I apologised. Yeah, I
That's
apologised, and I
hilarious.
said, look, I'm so sorry. And he said, no, I'm sorry to bother you on a Sunday afternoon. But he said, if you'd like to have a talk about this, I'd love you to come down to Canberra and we'll have a chat. So that's exactly what happened. So I thought back to my childhood days and how I wasn't terribly good at school. I wasn't terribly good at anything. And so if an opportunity comes along now, I absolutely grab it with both hands and I do the best I possibly can. So with that in mind, I tried, I got elected, and I represented the people of southwest Sydney, so Macarthur area, for the next 8, nearly 9 years. And I loved what I was able to do for people, yeah. In some cases, get them a set of teeth for a lady that hadn't had a set of dentures and was on the end of the Medicare queue and didn't look like she was going to get the opportunity to get a set of dentures for 2 years. So to her, that was a transformation of her life, just a simple thing like that.
Do you have any runs planned?
Well, it's funny you say that. There is a dream, couple of runs I would like to do still, and one is that I would like to race a guy from America. There's a very good ultramarathon runner. His name is Dean Carnesi, and he's written a number of books. I'd love to race him the length of Cuba, and it's a plan that the two of us have just briefly talked about and chatted about, but I've scoped it and I've looked at it in great detail, and it's something that I want to organise sometime in the near future and plan that. Another run that I would like to do is a run the length of China. So from right up the top near the Russian border, right down to the south, down to into Hong Kong. So, and I'm working on that as we speak as well.
Do you ever wake up in the morning and just go, nah, just cannot be bothered?
Yeah, yeah. Usually it's after I've just done a big run. I have a big break. I always have a break for a couple of months. I don't do anything. I become
'Cause
lazy
like
and
today, did you
overweight.
run somewhere today? Do you
I
train
ran
every
first
day?
thing this morning, yeah. Well, I usually run 20 kilometres. I live out at Maroubra, and I usually run Maroubra Beach or around the...
I actually have no words. Because I'm just thinking about myself just up the road, laying down in my bed. Pat Farmer, this has been amazing.
Well, thank you. I love the tea. It's great.
Thank you so much for coming. I feel so inspired. I feel like running. I might just take off my heels and do that. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jules.